Hello again and welcome if you are new. As you can see in this video, we were going to have to address some needed maintenance on the car. The oil light had turned on, so we thought since we already needed to work on the car, we would address a repair that needed to be done as well. The ball bearings inside of our tension pulley had started to wear out, so we wanted to replace our tension pulley. Little did we know that this project was gonna extend to 3 days. Immediately as we started to work on the car, we realized that our jack was not working. It was not wanting to lift the car for some reason, so we had decided that we were going to skip changing the oil today. So we started to look at our tension pulley to see if we were able to replace that. Realized that our power steering pump was leaking, so we had to decide whether or not we were going to replace that as well. And we thought since we were already working on this area and we needed to repair that anyways and pull it out to repair the parts under, that we would just come back to this the next day.
I just wanted to bring you in for a closer look real quick. We were not able to do anything today because we figured out this is what we want to replace, is this piece right here, down here. I don't know how well you can see it, but this piece is attached to this piece here. We need to replace that whole piece there. And so in order to replace that whole piece, we need to remove this piece out of the way. But we were looking at this because we were going to just replace this piece down here. We were looking at this and realized that this is leaking and that we've been having problems with it for a really long time where we have to keep refilling it. This is the power steering pump that helps you turn the wheel easily. And so we decided before we go pulling, because we're going to have to remove this in order to get to that, before we pull this out, that we should just go ahead and replace this also while we're working on it. So that kind of stopped us from taking any of this apart, because now we decided we were going to go ahead and purchase a new power steering pump here. This is the power steering reservoir. This is where the power steering goes. And so I just wanted to double check here which kind of power steering. This is the Honda Genuine. Since this is an Acura, it's a Honda brand. So we're going to replace this pump here. We're going to replace this here. This is the tension pulley. So this here together is one piece. And then while we're at it, we're also going to just go ahead and replace this belt. Just because since we're already removing it and already taking all this off, we're going to put a new one on here just to ensure that everything works properly here. So yeah, because we don't have the pump yet, we're going to wait to replace the pulley, and we're going to order the pump and get some power steering fluid so we can refill it. And that'll be done probably tomorrow if we can get all the parts in by tomorrow. We'll see. But what else we were needing to do here was to do some maintenance on the oil. We need to change the oil. So that requires us to change the oil filter, which is down deep in there. And then to replace the actual fluids on the oil. But we couldn't do that because we started to jack up the car and realized for some reason our jack was not working properly. So we're gonna work on the jack, see if we can get the jack to work properly. Gonna get some jack fluid in it to see if maybe it leaked out and that's why it's not doing such a great job. So yeah, we couldn't do anything today besides accumulate the parts.
So we spent a little bit of time ordering the part, and thankfully we found it on Amazon. That was 1 day shipping, so we were able to get back to it tomorrow. We spent the rest of the night working on the jack, and this is what we did. We took this little plug out of the jack where the jack fluid is, and then we refilled the jack fluid and made sure to burp the jack really well so there wasn't any air bubbles in there. And then after that, we put it all back together and it looked like it was working. So the moment of truth was the next day when we were ready to lift the car again. Our car is a low profile car, so it does need to be jacked up in order for us to change the oil. So that's why this was so essential, and you'll see that later in the video. At this point, we were pretty satisfied that it was working, so we weren't really going to be able to test it until the next day when we were going to go back out to work on the car. But this is the jack fluid we use. It says that it also stops leaks, so we were hoping that if there was a leak somewhere, that this would also stop it. We went ahead and we put this back together, and then we waited until the next day to get started again. Unfortunately, the next day it was raining outside, but we were not going to let that stop us. We went ahead and we set up a canopy that we had to keep the rain off, and got to work. This was the moment of truth to see if this jack would lift the car so that we could change the oil, and to our surprise, and we were so excited and happy, but it worked and we were able to change the oil on the car. These gray things on the sides are jack stands, and they are just a safety precaution. We're actually going to go ahead and put the jack down onto the jack stands, because the jack itself, we cannot trust it to hold the car up while we're under it, so we put the jack stands there because that'll hold the car up for us, so that we're safe under there while we're working. That is done. Now the car is fully rested on the jack stand, so we are ready to get to work. I allowed my husband to take the lead on this one because the car stuff is just, he's just a lot more knowledgeable at these things, so I just let him kind of take the lead on this, and I just followed his lead and was kind of clean up on this. Starting out, what he did is he went under the car to loosen the bolt to allow the oil to leak out of the car, and then he placed this black tub under there to just get all of that old oil from under the car, just to collect it into this container. And then he removed the oil filter and then replaced it with a new one, and we just had to wait for all of this oil to drain out before refilling it. The oil filter is really deep down in there. Usually people take it out from the bottom of the car, but he's able to reach it from the top, so we pull it out from the top. And then he was explaining the importance with a new filter before you put it in. It's important to make sure you have the old gasket, and then for the new one you want to add a little bit of oil on the seal and inside of it of new oil, just to ensure that it's not dry when you start the car. With the new filter in, he went through and made sure that everything was secured. He got the bolt back on under the car so that the fluid doesn't leak out. He went through the checklist of things that are important to have done before refilling the oil, and then we were able to refill it with some fresh oil. After we got the fresh oil in there, we made sure to turn the car on so that the oil can run through the car before starting on anything else. We let the car run for a couple of minutes before starting to clean up. While he was just doing some research and double checking on what we had to do next, I went ahead and cleaned up the old oil, and all I did was pour it back into the bottle of the new oil to make sure that we could take it to get recycled at a later time. And this is kind of the process that we go through every time the oil needs to get changed. With the oil being changed, we needed to lower it back down so that we could work on the other part, and so he went ahead and did that, took the jack stands out and lowered the car. After putting the car down, he made sure to check the levels of the oils and to make sure there wasn't any leaks, and then we proceeded to take off the belt here. We had to remove the tension, and then we were able to remove the belt. It was really important before we removed the belt to make sure that we had a diagram on hand as to how the belt went back on, which we were able to find, so then that made us comfortable to go ahead and get started on removing all of these things. We had a bit of a disagreement on what needed to happen first here, which one needed to be first, but my husband was right. He figured it out, so we went ahead and removed this big old wheel first so that we can get the power steering pump removed also. We started to remove all of the necessary bolts to be able to remove this. We unplugged all of the hoses and made sure to keep a napkin under them so that they wouldn't leak further into the car. and then we removed the power steering pump so that we can get to the tension pulley under it, and we'll be removing that as well. Here's just a quick side-by-side comparison so that you can see the new pump versus the old pump. Next, we had to replace this tension pulley, which there was 3 bolts holding it in place, so we just went ahead and loosened those up so that we can remove this. Here's a quick side-by-side comparison of the new and the old pulley. You can't hear them, but often the bearings start to make noise. Before we put everything back in there, we took some of this brake cleaner and make sure to clean out all the little crevices and cracks over here, just so that everything was clean when we put everything back in place. We were very careful not to get this into the electronics and things like that, just because we just didn't want the chance of it messing it up. I also took a moment to clean off all of the bolts that we had pulled out because a lot of them were really greasy. So I just wanted to make sure that they were nice and clean so that when they went back in, they would go in really nice and smooth, and we wouldn't have any problems with them going back into their spots. Up until this point, everything was going flawlessly, but this was the moment that we knew we had messed up, was with this bolt. We had attempted to tighten it and it snapped. So we had to go on a bit of a trip, and this is where day 3 comes in. We had to go and find a replacement bolt for this bolt here in the middle, and it was really hard to find a specific one here. We eventually just found one that would work for it. It wasn't like an exact bolt for this spot, but it worked. It was the same size and it was the same length, so it worked well. And so we had to call it quits on this day. We were out a car for 2 or 3 days, and then we were able to continue and reassemble everything like we originally wanted to. This is what the bolt ended up looking like. It took us a really long time to figure out how to get this little tiny piece of bolt out of the car, but we eventually got it out, and then this bolt is what we ended up replacing it with. It's very similar, but it's not the same bolt. This one is a little bit stronger and it will do. This was day 3. We were able to finally put everything back together. So we got the tension pulley back on, and then we went ahead and reinstalled the power steering pump, and then just got everything reassembled, got the hoses reattached, and then we had to go through the process of putting the belt back on. Now that all of the things were put back together, we grabbed our belt diagram so that we knew which way we were going to have to loop the belt through these different pulleys. And then we started to weave the belt throughout all the different pulleys and just followed the diagram of how it was supposed to go on. And once that was all assembled and we made sure all of the bolts were tightened, all of the hoses were reconnected, then we went ahead and turned the car on, and my husband took it for a test drive.
There's the all reassembled. Okay. I mean, it turned. I mean, it looks fantastic.
And there you have it. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. I should be posting next week, and yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.